Before I introduce you to my next guest today, I want to make sure that you're aware of a training and coaching resource to help you increase your productivity, clarify your purpose, and improve your communication skills. It's called the Next Level Coaching and Leadership with Purpose programs. To learn more, simply go to warrenwandling.com, and under the programs tab, you'll find both of those resources. Again, that's WARRENWANDLING.com. Now, on to the show. Welcome back to another episode of How to Become an Obstacle Buster. I'm your host, Warren Wandling, the show that's dedicated helping leaders and entrepreneurs to overcome their obstacles, build resilience, and achieve success. And I have an interesting guest to help us do just that, Michelle LaBrosse. So, as an accomplished author, CEO of Cheetah Learning, an inspired figure in project management with a dynamic background in aerospace engineering and a rich career as an Air Force officer, tell our listeners about your business.
Well, I've been in business since 1987. When I got out of the Air Force, I started my first consulting company, and I morphed it over the years. And in 2000, I slid into what is now my biggest success of my lifetime, Cheetah Learning. But it wasn't like a lot of people like, oh, you became an overnight success. Yeah, it took me 15 years.
Yeah, exactly. That was easy for you.
And lots of obstacles.
Yes, I'm sure.
So Cheetah has been around since 2000, and in 2001, I stumbled upon a phenomenal business that has carried me for the past 23 years, and it is helping people pass this very difficult certification exam for project managers, Cheetah Fast. They spend 4 days with us, and they go past the exam on the fifth day. Now, when we started back in 2001 with this program, there were only 40,000 people who were project management professional certified. And it had been around for 20 years because nobody was able to pass the exam. It took them 6 months of studying and 40% failed. And we came up with a way to do it with accelerated learning, where people spend 4 days in our program and 98% of them pass. And now there's over 1 million people 20 years later who are project management professionals certified.
Well, that's a phenomenal statistic because I know in the past of different clients that I've worked with in my past are certified as a PMP. So that is really interesting in reference to your ability to be able to shorten that learning curve, because I've heard so many stories about studying and trying to apply and pass the test and having to take it multiple times to achieve that level of certification.
Yeah, so it is. I've been studying accelerated learning since well before 2001. I'd gotten into it in the early 90s, and I'd gotten a degree in aerospace engineering. I had an Air Force scholarship, so that meant I had to get my program done in 4 years. And most engineers take 5 or 6 years. And so I had to take 7 engineering courses a semester in order to do that. And so I developed a lot of accelerated learning techniques in order to be successful with that program, which is what we use in Cheetah. Besides just, it's my passion, it's my avocation to study how to work with the way your brain works to accelerate your learning.
Wow, that's fascinating. I know we have some definitely going to jump into that kind of deeper. I know our listeners would probably be interested in some of those strategies that you're referring to. But when you're working with clients, what do you consider is like the greatest obstacle that you encounter?
Well, it's a lack of self efficacy. And self efficacy means a belief in your ability to accomplish your goals. And that's one of the things we do very early on with our students is we address their limiting beliefs and attitudes. And we're very well proven and established process with 80,000 students. So we just say, look, just trust us and follow the process. We're guaranteeing you're going to pass. So we're taking the pressure off of you there. But please just follow our approach. And there's something called cognitive dissonance. I'm sure you're familiar with this, talking about obstacle
Yeah.
busting,
Oh, yes.
right? So if you don't believe something is going to work, your brain literally has to work 10 times harder to learn new information. And if you believe it's going to work, you're much more open and receptive to trying new things and being more creative. So, your beliefs and attitudes matter significantly. Your self efficacy, your belief in your ability to do something is, if you don't have that, that's your biggest obstacle to achieving anything. You are your own obstacle.
That is so true. Isn't it interesting enough how to be able to get clients to understand the importance of their mindset and identify limiting beliefs will accelerate their success?
Right. And so, I mean, like, we're lucky because we've had 80,000 people do it. And everybody who comes to us comes through a recommendation. And it's the recommendation is just do what they tell you. And
Yes.
it's so interesting when we have a student who is just resistant to that. It's like you can see they don't like some of the stuff we're suggesting, and they just don't want to do it. They don't believe it. And then not surprising, and they don't pass the test. And, we always say, look, you can follow our approach the first time you take the test, or you can follow our approach the second time you take the test.
Yeah, that it seems like an easy decision, right?
Eh, yeah. And it's like, why did you even sign up if you just wanted to fight with us? I don't even get that. And it's like, well, I'm so sorry you're having these issues, but, we tee it up. We tee it up tremendously. They do a pre-course to get ready. And we don't do anything that's out of the ordinary. We've been doing this for 20 years, and it's extremely well proven. you know, One of the things we do is we request that they stay away from sugar and caffeine
Mhm.
because it doesn't help your brain in learning. And we're only asking them to do this for a very short period of time. So it's like, if you can't give up your frosted sugar bombs for breakfast, you get bigger problems in passing the PMP exam.
Oh, sure. So as
Yeah,
you're building your business, what were some of the things that contributed to your success?
a support network.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Yeah. Because I was a single mom. And so when I got divorced, I was living in Seattle and my parents were living in Connecticut and my siblings were there too. And I was really struggling with my business in Seattle. It just was hard for me to even to get the time to even put into doing the business when I had to take care of the kids by myself. And I bombed a couple companies, and then I said, I got to do something different here. This is not working for me. I hadn't planned on raising the kids alone. It just happened. And so I decided to cash in my aerospace engineering degree and go get a job as a research scientist in a company that was 3 miles from my parents.
Oh,
And,
wow, interesting.
at the time, I felt like a huge failure. My marriage had failed, my business had failed. Here I am living 3 miles from my parents with my children as a single mom. And that wasn't good for my self-esteem at all. But it was an important lesson that I needed supportive people around me. I had my friends in Seattle, but they were busy with their own careers. My parents had recently retired, and they helped me with my children. My children were 5 and 7 when I moved, so I needed help. And that made a huge difference, was getting a good support network. And I being a single parent is an obstacle, and I don't want to say that's a belief system because you have to take care of your children. But I was able to make it work, and when I moved back to Connecticut and took that job, my life became a lot easier. And I was in that job for about 2 years, and I came up with the idea for cheetah learning. And I would not have pursued it if I didn't have my parents helping me. So I want to give them a lot of credit. They're no longer with us, but it was really developing that support network that was so crucial to my success.
Wow, that's so interesting. It definitely mentors, coaches, having a support network is really important to encourage others to break through the obstacles.
Right. Well, I mean, they have to be supportive in so many ways. I mean, support doesn't just come with good words, right? It comes with action.
Mhm.
And like, my dad would show up every morning and wait, in the summertime and wait for the kids to wake up. And then my mom did like summer camp with the kids. She had them in tennis lessons and swimming lessons. And there's no way, even being married, I could have pulled this off. The only
Uh-huh.
reason I was able to pull this off was because of my parents. I mean, and I don't want to advocate to people to go become single parents and lean on your parents as heavily as I did. Um, but I have to acknowledge that I did not, by any stretch of the imagination, do this alone.
You're
I
exactly right.
had a family. I had a very supportive family that helped me.
So I'm curious, since a cheetah can reach speeds up to 64 miles per hour in 3 seconds,
Yeah.
how do you train your clients to reach goals cheetah fast?
Well, the biggest way to reach goals cheetah fast is to remove your obstacles. Okay,
Yes.
that's why I love the show, because like if you're a track star and you're trying to run the hurdles, you're not going to run nearly as fast as the person who has no hurdles or no obstacles, right? So, with the accelerated exam prep that we do, we remove a lot of the obstacles to learning fast. One of them is distractions and not focusing. And those are actually two of the biggest obstacles to achieving your goals really fast, which is what Cheetah Agile Certified is about. The book that I wrote, Cheetah Agile Projects, is we focus on getting significant projects done in 2 weeks by removing the obstacles to speed. And one of them is not focusing on one task. So if you just have one project you're focusing on and that's all you're doing for 2 weeks, it's amazing what you can pull off in 2 weeks. And I talk about that in the Cheetah Agile Project book. In Alaska, I went on vacation in 2018. I was living in Alaska. Okay. So in the winter, there's not a lot going on in Alaska. And I went on Christmas vacation for 2 weeks. It was a staycation.
Uh-huh.
And I was making presents at the beginning of my staycation for my family members. And I'm a professionally trained chef, and I was making them spice blends and tea blends. And I had some workers at my house helping me out, and I had made some pork ribs with one of my rib rubs. And this guy goes, "This is so amazing. Are you selling this?" And I'm like, "No, I just make these for family and for dinner parties and stuff." He goes, "Well, this is really good. You should look at selling this." I said, "Well, that's an interesting idea. I have 2 weeks off." And so I looked and I could get alaskaspiceshop.com, and I was able to get that domain. And I'm a pretty good graphics designer. So I made all my packaging. And about 2 weeks in, I had created the website and I got the packaging, and I'm blending my spices. And I said, I should figure out what the price point is on this product. So I called a friend who ran a little gift store, and I asked her what she thought I could sell these for. And she said, "Well, are you going to the Alaska Gift and Trade Show next week in Anchorage?" And I said, "No, I didn't even know about it." And so she said, "Well, I think you should be up there." And she gave me some more advice about pricing it. And so I went up there, and I was able to rally with my Cheetah Agile project technique to get my new business up and running and being at a trade show and selling product in 2 weeks. And when I got up there, the other company in Alaska called Alaska Spice Company, which I hadn't even done any like market research on this idea because it was just kind of a hobby. They didn't show up, and I got all their customers.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not even in business like 2.5 weeks, and we hit the ground running. But I had set the entire company up in 2 weeks, and that's when I'm like, I have to teach other people how to do this, and that's when I wrote my book, Cheetah Agile Projects: How to Get Significant Projects Done in 2 weeks. But there's a couple of things that made that possible. One of them was I was able to commit to this based on my capabilities. I mean, I had been to trade shows and I knew graphics design and I was a chef, so I had all the spice and tea blends done already, and I just had to put them in the packaging. Um, so, it was a reality based thing. Plus, I never started it out to go to that trade show. It was just an opportunity that came up. But because I was so well prepped with my capabilities for this product line, it wasn't a big stretch for me to make that happen. So that's like a big thing about, you know, are you capable of doing what your aspirations are? That's a big thing about removing your obstacles, is figuring out what is it you can do rather than looking at what it is you can't do. Because I always had said this to my kids. What I can do is finite. What I can't do is infinite.
Uh-huh.
So, focusing on what you can do, it makes a big difference in removing your obstacles. And that can really help you move a lot faster.
Yeah, so within that cheetah process, it sounds like for leaders are looking, we're moving towards into the end of the year, and January is always a good time to start a new project. I think it's actually better to start it now. So when you move into 2024, if you're listening this in 2023, that you're set up for success. So it sounds like you have that a pattern for success in reference to it, and one of it is clearing your schedule to have that time to be concentrated on the task at hand, and then making sure that you have the right mindset, believing that you can accomplish that task or having a growth mindset.
Uh, well, it's also it takes commitment and discipline. And like I'm right now in the middle of a 2-week sprint to double sales revenue with my sales team, which is a big, hairy, audacious goal, but we're really cranking through it. We want to create a process. We want to create stable processes that will bring us up to this next level. And that's what our 2-week goal is. And we get together every morning for 15 minutes to discuss what new thing are we testing out. And, we have to do it in line with our other commitments. Like I have this recording today, right? And they have their other things they're doing, but we can carve out that time during the 2 weeks to just focus on this. Now, one of the things that happens with entrepreneurs is the new shiny, and they get so many things going on that they can't focus on anything. And that's what I like about the 2-week approach is I'm only focusing on this 2-week sprint we're doing to create the system for upgrading our sales processes to double the revenue. I'm not going and starting a spice shop, right? I am not like having to plan a big vacation or a huge event. For the next 2 weeks, I am just working on this project while I'm taking care of the duties of my day, right? And that is a huge obstacle I see to people being successful is they just are not focusing on what is most important. They're not prioritizing correctly.
So is there a project management or productivity strategy that you teach your clients to be able to get a clearer focus?
Well, okay, so I have this little quick start guide for Cheetah Agile projects, and I call it reality based project selection, right? So a lot of times people pursue projects and they haven't set them up correctly from the get go. They haven't even done a good feasibility study on are they even capable of doing this project, right? So it's figuring out what can you commit to based on the capabilities, the people you have available. um, do you even all agree on whoever's working on this with you what done means? I mean, that's a really fascinating uh, concept, is that we've agreed to what done means for this project. Because if you don't agree what done means and everybody has a different idea of when you're finished, you're never finishing that project.
Yeah, interesting. That's an interesting question, right?
Right. And being able to access all of your sources of capital. So most people look at doing projects as having the money to do it, but do you have the relationships to do the project? Do you have the knowledge and the skills to do the project? Do you have the infrastructure to do the project? Do you have the reputation that you can lean on to do this project? So let me just give you an example. I just finished building a new virtual training center for Cheetah, and part of our problem was we were having an issue getting qualified people to come in and do the tiling. And so I went and I talked to the hardware store and I said, "Do you have a good tiler you could recommend?" And he said, "Yes, I do have a good tiler." And this guy came over later that afternoon and he said, "Oh, they put in a really good word for you at the hardware store. They said you pay your bills on time." And so that was my reputation. So because I had a good reputation with the hardware store, I was able to get a qualified person. So you have these 5 sources of capital that you need to be able to leverage and leverage them intelligently to get your projects done. And most people don't look at that. Like your reputation, your brand capital, your relationships, your social capital, your knowledge and your skill. That's called your knowledge capital, your infrastructure capital. Like, what do you have that you could leverage to do this project? And lastly, is financial capital, which sometimes isn't even the most important. Do you have the money to do the project? But if you have those other four, sometimes the money isn't even that important, because a lot of people say, oh, I don't have the money to do that. To me, that's just a lame excuse. No, you don't have these other four sources of capital well enough developed to go after this. And so maybe you need to spend some time and really take a concerted effort to improve these other four sources of capital, because then it makes it that much easier to pursue your goals.
Sure, that makes sense in reference to looking at the whole picture in reference to the access of the different capitals that you have. Why is humility and authenticity the key to effective leadership?
Well, this is great because I just wrote a blog post about this. I don't know if you read that or not, but it keeps your mind open and it keeps you real. It's like, uh, it's so hard to teach somebody that knows everything, anything new. And if you have a lot of hubris, then it's very difficult to be open minded and ask for help.
Mhm.
Because sometimes it's embarrassing to ask for help. And so if you have humility, you open yourself more up to resources that could genuinely help you get something done. Because we're not islands, we exist in a very interconnected infrastructure. And authenticity gives people the ability to trust you. And I say that we're all animals. And we all have this innate sense of, if somebody's a predator and we're the prey,
Mhm.
right? And so you may not know why you don't really trust somebody. They're not authentic. You have a level of they're phony, and you're not going to go that far in that relationship with whatever you're trying to do together. So authenticity makes it easier for people to trust you. And when that exists, that's another obstacle that you've removed a barrier.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes for leaders, being both of those words, having humility and being authentic, sometimes they'll hold back, um, not wanting to people to get close and really understand who they truly are.
Yeah, I have a great leadership quote here. I just saw this morning. It was lead from behind, especially when celebrating victory, and take the front line when there is danger. And this was by Nelson Mandela,
Oh, wow.
right? And one of the things I'm really big at is leveraging people's innate strengths and
Mhm.
letting them become the hero of their story and our collective story. I don't need or want to be in the limelight. I would much rather be supporting people on their journey. But when there's real danger, I will use my capability to jump up front and make sure that that person that I'm bringing on board has the capability to move forward through that situation. And, so many times I've seen, people who let someone struggle too long. That doesn't help them. A little bit of struggle is valuable, but letting somebody have enough rope to hang themselves is really not appropriate. It's especially not when you're trying to get something done well. Let's all use our strengths and we're all pulling the boat in the same direction.
Exactly right. That's part of leadership is creating leverage within your team, helping someone else to reach their potential.
Right. And when you do that, then, they become like rocket ships of progress and you're running to keep up with them, which is awesome. I love that.
So then in your opinion, what are the steps to locking growth?
Well, the first thing I do is I look for someone's innate strengths and I try to bring it to light and work with them in that way, and not put people in situations where they really have no innate talent or capability. No matter what they say, I look at what they do and what they're capable of before throwing them into the wolves. So, uh, I'm gonna try to think of an example where I just did that recently. It was like probably the COO of our company. This woman was amazing at managing other people and trainers, and she didn't really see that as a core competency. And gradually, I've extended more and more opportunities for her to see this in herself. And now she does believe it, that she is very good at managing other trainers. So it wasn't like just like, oh, here, you're great at managing other trainers. Let me just throw you into this position. I gave her the chance to experience that innate strength on her own. And so it wasn't just, here, I'm going to just, put you in over your head and then you're going to feel really bad about this strength.
Sure, interesting to help them self-discover that strength. That's important from your perspective.
Yeah. And so I think that's, I've had a number of people, several hundred people have worked for me over the years. And that I think is really one of my core competencies is developing people's innate strengths. And innate strengths are a little hard because it's kind of like your nose. You only know what your nose looks like on reflection. So many people have these innate strengths. They don't even know are strengths because they're just a natural part of who they are.
Right, and typically they come easy to them, so they discount them as a strength.
Right. They just think that everybody can do this, that this is just normal, this is just easy, this is not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal, and I need you helping me with your innate strengths.
So leadership is influence. What's one of the top strategies that you share with your clients to help increase results?
Well, my big thing is focusing and finishing and not allowing the dopamine hits of daily life to get in your way. So, there's a lot of analysis and study about getting these feel good hits from social media posts, people liking your posts or getting texts, which makes those mediums addicting. But you can get the same type of dopamine hits with a to do list. And making your to do list initially obvious. All right. We all are doers, right? We're getting lots of little things done, and you start to feel that dopamine hit from checking off your to-do list, which replaces your need to check social media or check your text, which is extremely distracting and doesn't help you get anything done.
Exactly.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but we're all addicted to this dopamine hit. So we need to replace it with something, because otherwise, people are going to go through withdrawal and they're going to fall back to these addictive patterns of behavior that don't help them get things done. So that's one of my first things is basically making that to-do list very simple and very focused on the goal and keeping it small. So one of the things is when I notice people are frustrated, I notice that their goal is too big. So we dial it back. What can they do right now that's little in the achievement of their goal? It doesn't even matter. It could be as simple as cleaning the kitchen, because once the kitchen is clean, then they're free to go do something else. But that dirty kitchen is distracting them and making them crazy, right? So it's dialing it back so that you're not living in this level of frustration, but where you're actually moving forward, you're feeling like you're making progress.
Yeah, that's so important. It's interesting, based on some of the research that I've done, is that the mind repeats what it's rewarded. So that process that you just shared, so if they do something that they know they will follow through on, then it repeats that process, looking for other tasks that they can repeat to be successful. And then they develop the winning mindset.
Right? They develop a mindset of get it done, because that's what Cheetah Agile Projects is all about. Is I always say that nobody remembers the projects you start. They remember the projects you finish.
Yeah, I love that quote.
So, don't focus on the projects you're going to start. Focus on finishing this project. And, so many people have like a closet full of unfinished craft projects, right? Oh, this idea looks like fun. My thing is get rid of it because it's sucking your life force. If you haven't worked on it in 6 months, if you want to start up that hobby again, you're going to go buy everything new anyways. But looking at a closet or a bookshelf of a bunch of things you never finished really is demoralizing.
Yes, I love that new perspective of look at projects that you're going to finish, not start.
Right.
So what
And
is the future? Go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead, Warren. Sorry.
What's the future hold for you? Are you working on any special projects?
Well, I'm working on getting the Cheetah Agile Certified program off the ground. This book I wrote because Agile is a very well established project management methodology, but is well established for software development.
Right.
And I use it for everything. Like I just finished building, like I said, the Cheetah Virtual Training Center, and I did in the last 8 weeks from the time the sheetrock was done. In 8 weeks, we finished the building, which is unbelievable. And we did it in 2 week Cheetah Agile sprints.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's remarkable that we finished the building to getting the certificate of occupancy in 8 weeks from when the sheetrock was done. And this, most people will say that you have to use predictive project management methods for construction. Well, I didn't. I used Agile, and I used a 2 week approach, my Cheetah Agile project methodology, and was able to achieve something that most people, especially right now with the supplier chain issues, found absolutely amazing. But I was very focused and I was exhausted at the end of the 8 weeks from doing 4 back-to-back Agile sprints.
Wow, that's fascinating. Using the sprint process to be able to drive the process and to determine the challenges that you face, and then eliminate those challenges on a daily basis.
Right. I mean, it was, I'm going to tell you right now, it was not easy. All right.
I'm sure.
And it was, I mean, but I was committed to finishing. That was the big difference. I was totally committed to finishing this project.
Wow, that's fascinating. I'm sure our listeners will be interested in being able to get a hold of your book or other materials that you have to offer, certainly around this process to help accelerate their success. So, with that being said, if our listeners, I know which they will want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to be able to reach out?
Well, I can be found at michelle.labrosse at cheetahlearning.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well if they would like to get in touch with me personally. I also have a offer for the listeners. We have a course called Cheetah Agile Certified that teaches you how to get your projects done in 2 weeks and develop the whole mindset. And it's really metacognition programming. You talked a
Oh,
little bit about
yes.
getting into people's headsets, right? So when you learn how to get your projects done in 2 weeks, you don't ever forget, right? It's not like I'm going to suddenly forget that I can do this. You're going to do it all the time. It's going to just become your habit. And so we have a program that helps that become people's habits, and it's called Cheetah Agile Certified. So they just naturally get their projects done in 2 weeks. And your listeners can get 10% off that program, and they can go to cheetahagile.com/busted. And that means, your obstacle buster, right? So bust it. And just, you can go, we have a promo code on there. And we also have a number of other free downloads and videos and a number of things you can tap into to learn how to get your projects done quicker. Like I said, it doesn't matter what you start, it matters what you finish. And you don't have to be a prisoner of the never ending project.
Yes, that should sound pretty freeing to most, if not all, of our listeners.
Yeah, because there's nothing more frustrating than never finishing a project.
Exactly. That is so true. Well, excellent. Well, that's exciting. Thank you so much for that offer for our listeners. So we want to make sure they take advantage of that and go to that link. And I'll make sure that link is in the show notes.
Well, Warren, I think it's really, really awesome that you were doing a program on busting through obstacles because, once you have a clear way of reducing the obstacles in front of you, you really can move cheetah fast.
Yes. Yeah, it's fascinating how fast cheetahs do run, right? So with your process that you shared with us today, it sounds like those that really implement your program can really start breaking through those obstacles and getting those projects finished.
Yeah, and I've said this for years is the more successful you are with your projects, the more successful you are in life.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Because
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for all your time and insight and resources that you've shared with our listeners to help them break through their obstacles to achieve success.
thank you so much, Warren.
All right, until next time, this is your host, Warren Wandling, saying be an obstacle buster and be resilient.